Hi guys, and welcome back to World of Tanks, and I'm going to be looking at the new Patriot T26E5, which is a new Tier 8 American premium heavy tank, and it is essentially an up-armoured version of the Pershing, which is the Tier 8 medium tank. And it was after the success of the up-armouring of the Sherman, the E2, the Jumbo, that they decided to try and do the same thing with the Pershing, and basically this was the result. However, in real life, well, its mobility was that poor, basically, because of the extra weight. It just destroyed its suspension when it travelled off-road and what have you, that they decided to elongate the hull, and it became the T32. However, in game, don't worry, the mobility is, well, it's about that time that you realise that, you know, it sort of reminds you that this is not a simulator and it is more of an arcade tank game, because the mobility on this thing is pretty crazy for a heavy tank. It's pretty nice, actually, considering the fact that it's quite well armoured as well. Now, first things first, let's just have a quick look at the price. I have got this on the press account. However, I have actually bought both of these tanks on my own account, but I've done it on here because I've got the other tanks on here to compare it to. In fact, I probably have on mine as well, but not with the Defender. Anyway, the main package, or the sort of the dual bundle, isn't in there at the minute. It's 21,500. Obviously, it's not there because I've bought it. There are no extras with it at all, and that brings the price of both of these tanks down to 10,750 gold each. Which, although that is still at the sort of upper limit of what I think Tier 8 premiums should be, bear in mind things like the Lerva and the IS6 are around 12,000 each. So yeah, 10,750 is at the upper limit of what I think a Tier 8 should be. That does bring it more in line with what they cost on the PC, and it is a step in the right direction. However, the individual bundles at the moment are still quite pricey at 13,600 and 14,800. They're not as pricey as some of the others that we've seen recently, but still, I think that's too much, and I do think it needs to come down a bit as well. But anyway, enough about that. That's something for another video. So the Patriot, yeah, up-armoured Pershing. It's got the 90mm gun, and don't let that fool you. See, I went into this thinking, well, you know, I quite like the look of the Defender. I'd like to have a, you know, looking forward to having a mess about in that, but I'm not bothered about the Patriot. My first game in it really changed my mind, and it was because of the 90mm that I wasn't too fussed. I thought 90mm on a heavy tank, that's a medium tank gun. But, you know, there's, you know, things like the Liberté that has it, but that's very mobile, not particularly well armoured. But yeah, it did change my mind. Now, you've got a 704 horsepower engine. That 90mm gives you a rate of fire of 8.33 rounds a minute, which is faster than the Pershing and the Super Pershing. And don't forget, they have less penetration. They have 190 for the Pershing, 170 for the Super Pershing. This has 230mm of pen on a 90mm, which is, I mean, let's face it, that's kind of obscenely high for a 90mm gun, but it kind of makes up for the low alpha. Not everybody's going to like this tank because it's a heavy tank with a low alpha, sort of higher DPM gun, and I know a lot of people prefer the heavy tanks to have a good big alpha damage, and well, there's the Defender for that. Well, out of these two anyway, should I say. But yeah, 230 penetration, standard 90mm damage at 240, 259 on your premium rounds, which is not much more than your standard, and I don't think I've had to fire a single premium round yet. 45 320 for your 90mm. Aiming time 2.3 seconds, accuracy 0.38, slightly worse accuracy than on the Pershing, I think, and the Super Pershing, if I remember rightly. Aiming time, I think, is about in line with that. 30 degrees of hull traverse, which is quite nice. Don't forget, this is a heavy tank, not a medium, even though it's based on a medium, and it kind of feels a bit more like a medium when you're playing it. Traverse on the turret is 25, so sometimes when you turn in the hull really quickly, the turret does take a second just to catch up, but it's not too bad. With a 390 meter view range as well, which is quite a nice view range. Supplies, well, it's a 90mm, so quite nice and cheap. 255 for your AP, 4,400 for your APCR, and 255 for your high explosive. And I just stuck standard small consumables on here. I didn't want to. I mean, it's already got a ridiculously skilled crew because this is the press account. I didn't want to make it even sort of. I didn't want to make it even worse, or even, you know, make the skills even better by putting premium consumables on as well. You know, I would have liked to have seen how often the crew get injured, etc. And obviously a premium first aid kit affects that. I don't know why that's changing. Anyway, equipment wise, well, I've gone for a vertical stabilizer. I've gone for a gun rammer just to try and get the rate of fire up even more, because it's it's all about the sort of DPM on this. You can't just hit for 400 damage or whatever. You've got to put a couple of shots out to do that. So yeah, increase the rate of fire. That's the way I look at it. And I've also gone for coated optics as opposed to vents. The view range is quite good anyway. I thought I'd get that view range up a little bit more anyway. And skill wise, well, its terrain resistances aren't too bad. We'll look at those in a minute, but they're about the same as they are on the T32. Not quite as good as they are on the actual Pershing, but they're not too bad. So yeah, I don't know skill wise. Probably just your standard sort of stuff. Obviously your Sixth Sense. Snapshot might be a good one. Depends on how you want to play this tank, really. Situational awareness is pretty much a must. Obviously, Sixth Sense, Brothers in Arms, your sort of standard stuff. And then it really does depend on how you want to play it, because it kind of does feel like a medium, but you can play it like a heavy. And if you get this thing hull down, it's pretty ridiculous as well. Well, mostly American heavies aren't they? If you get them hull down, they are pretty ridiculous to try and get through. But let's have a look at the other stats as well. Now, where am I? Just before I go into it, your bonuses on this: 57% silver and 15% XP, and you've got 1500 health. Concealment isn't great because it's a heavy tank, 0.12, while stationary 0.07 while moving. That is slightly better than the T32, even though it's not really got a full covering of it's not got really a full paint job all over it. You cannot put anything on it other than a flag, so that kind of makes up for that, I think. Now, 704 horsepower engine. Even with the extra armour, that still works out to a pretty decent power to weight ratio of 15.17, which is better than the T32 and not quite as good as the Pershing, but not by much. The Pershing's around 16 point something, so it's not too bad. Top speed of 40.2 kilometers an hour, 15 in reverse, and a 20% chance of fire. Quite often these American ones do have quite a high percentage sort of fire chance. Fairly large engine, doesn't take up the entire back of the tank, but I'd say from sort of the rear of the turret ring to where it just starts to drop down on the back there, where it just starts to angle down. Gun, well, very good gun depression, as you would expect for an American tank. Definitely workable elevation. There's a lot higher out there, but there's also a hell of a lot worse. So 20 degrees on the elevation, which is more than workable, and minus 10 or 10 degrees, however you want to say it, on the downside, which is really nice. But then again, it's something we're very, very used to with American tanks. They do generally have extraordinarily, they do have very, very good gun depression. And the reason I say minus 10, by the way, is because I see the gun as that's the 0 line, because that's flat horizontal, so that's your 0 degrees. Anything above it is obviously plus, anything below it is minus, because you're going into the negative, because you're going past, down past the 0. That's just the way I do it. Track wise, like I said before, they are fairly, the big tracks on this. I've eaten a couple of shots into the tracks. There are a few gaps to get through as well. Terrain resistances are almost exactly the same as the T32, but I think that one's 1.1, 1.5, 2.7. This is 1.2, 1.4, 2.7. So, switched around ever so slightly, but near as damn it, they're the same. Turret on top. Radio is in the back of the turret, in the bustle. Again, very typical with the American tanks. Ammunition blocks, we've got one just running down the side of the turret, the left-hand side, so that's a good one to hit. And then you've got a big one down in the belly of the tank. So I'd say, yeah, roughly under the central part of the turret, right under the middle of the turret, just below the level of the tracks on either side, and you've got a good chance to try and damage the ammo rack. Crew members, you've got the driver and the hull machine gunner down in the hull there, and then you've got the commander under his cupola, and the gunner and the loader sat up in the turret. Now, armour-wise, like I say, this is up-armoured from the standard Pershing. Turret's not quite as good as it is on the T32, but the hull is stronger as well. So, I think the hull's stronger. I'll have to check that on the T32. I can't remember what the hull strength is on that one now. I know it's 102 on the T29, and I thought the T32 was about the same, but it might be slightly more. It might be 127, but I'll check. Anyway, on this one, 152 on the front of the hull, 76 on the sides, so again, very typically American, very strong front, very weak sides. And only 51 on the rear, and the turret is 191 on the front, 114 on the sides, and 127 on the rear. But again, as you can see, it doesn't really tell the whole story. You can see there it says up to 279. However, up at the top it says up to 203. But then again, it's got to be a bit thicker. That's your 203. But yeah, we'll have a look at it anyway. So, 1 to 20mm. That's your tracks, and just a bit at the back of the rear lower glacis, I think. Yeah. 21 to 30, top of your commander's hatch, top of your turret. Same shape sort of turret as the Pershing, so you do have that bit of a lip just in front of the commander's hatch, which if you're close enough or accurate enough, you can hit. But it's very difficult. You've got the hull floor and the engine deck as well. 31 to 50 is the rear sides of the tank as well as the actual rear itself. A very small piece of spaced armour on top of the gun mantle. The front part of the top of the turret and the front part of the actual upper deck as well, just in front of the turret. 71 to 90, they're your front sides, sort of the forward 3/4, I would have said, or 2/3. The sides of the gun mantle as well also fall into that, and you can just see a thin strip just underneath it, just there. 91 to 120, where you've got the rear sides of the turret, sort of back 2/3 or 3/4, fall into that one, and you've got those bits getting thicker on the gun mantle as they come down, which is again kind of typical with the American ones. You sort of get, oh, yeah, I don't know what happened there. Like I said, I've been having a lot of problems with my capture card. I'm going to have to be getting a new one very soon. Some more small patches just on that lump that sort of separates the driver and the gun a bit. And you've got the surround of the machine gun, and bits of the lower glacis as well also fall into that bracket. 121 to 160. And again, these don't really show the whole story. These are just rough brackets, so you know roughly where the weaker spots are. Again, on the lower glacis, coming in a bit thicker on those patches. The upper glacis falls into that, so that'll be your 157. The commander's hatch, which is also fairly thick, and it's got the angle to it. It's not overly big, and especially when this is using gun depression, it really does reduce it. You've got the rear of the turret, the rear of the base of the turret as well. 161 to 190, the bottom of the commander's hatch. That step I was on about, that small lip that's on the top of the turret. The front portions of the turret as well, and the turret ring, and a little bit more on the gun mantle. No, that's just behind the gun mantle, you can see there. 191 to 230, the front of the machine gun port. So the machine gun port on this is not a weak spot, not the front of it anyway. The sides are a bit weaker of the machine gun port, just not the front. You've also got that bit at the top of the upper glacis, I don't know what it is, I'm sorry, and that thin strip across the top of the gun mantle. And then this bit, which I'm assuming is your 279, is your gun mantle. Very, very strong gun mantle, which is again typical of the Pershing. That has a bit of a surprise in its gun mantle. Very, very thick strip across the front of it. So yeah, it's very tough hull down. Not quite as tough a turret, like I said before, as the T32, but not far off. And yeah, I think in my first match in this, I blocked about 3,600 damage. And it kind of changed my mind about it. And like I said before, this is the one that I really wasn't too fussed about trying out, and after going in it, I really kind of do like it. Weak spots frontally, like I said before, the side of the machine gun hatch, lower glacis if you can get to it, and the commander's hatch again if you can get to it. Otherwise, just get around the side of this thing, because the side and the rear come just so weak. But go for the hull rather than the turret, because the turret is tougher than the hull. And yeah, I think that's about it really. Not much else I can say really in the garage, so I think we'll just get into the replays and see how it actually handles. Here we are for the first of the replays. It's a tier 8 match, and it's on mines, and this was my very first game in this. And like I said, in the garage, I wasn't overly fussed about having to go in this one because of the 90mm. I just thought 90mm on a heavy tank, maybe not. But yeah, really pleasant surprise, and like I said before, I ended up buying both. Now, quick reiteration of what I said in the garage, or a quick sort of summary. It's essentially kind of like a more mobile T32 but with a fast firing 90mm, so it's not going to be for everybody because not everybody likes the low alpha sort of higher DPM tanks, especially not on heavies. But you know, I've been enjoying it, and you know, that's it. So it's a decent tank, very very tough, like I say. The front on the T32, by the way, is 127mm, or 127mm, sorry. I did check on that. So this does have a thicker front, hull front, but I don't think it's quite as well angled. And yeah, this should have gone up yesterday, but two of my kids, my boys, my eldest and my youngest, were actually off school ill, seemingly with an illness, and lasted a couple of hours. And I managed to get the footage, I just couldn't get the commentary done. So that's why it's going up today. But yeah, I mean, you know, I've got to admit it, I kind of like this tank, and I think with the bundle being a bit cheaper and obviously bringing the price down. I mean, consider that the Adler, when it was released, the top bundle was over 10,000, and that's tier 7. And these are tier 8. So yeah, it did bring the price down a bit, and like I said, I think it's a step in the right direction. But the rate of fire on this, you can just keep things tracked, as this unfortunate defender will find out. And I kept dodging backwards and forwards because I kept taking a lot of hits to the turret. I've got myself in a very very good position for this tank, and I was a bit concerned about them hitting my commander's hatch, but as it turned out, I didn't really need to worry about that. The commander's hatch does seem to be quite difficult to hit on this, and I'm just able to use the rate of fire on this just to keep that defender tracked, keep him in position, and well, just take him out. And you can see it's bouncing now. Something I have noticed with this though, I mean, like I say, it's got very very good pen, but it does seem to struggle against the higher tier Swedish TDs, you know, the tier 8 and upwards, because they do seem to be geared, and I don't know if I'm right on this, but I seem to remember something about that they essentially bounce almost anything 90mm and below. So it can be a bit of a bugger against the front of those with it only having that 90mm. But like I say, the sort of higher rate of fire and the very good penetration on this gun, for what it is, you know, it does make up for it. I mean, bear in mind the T32 has 198 pen, the Tiger 2 has 225. I think the IS-3, I think that's 225 as well. So at 230, this is, you know, good pen on a tier 8, very good pen, and very very good pen for a 90mm. I mean, the Liberté has something like 212, which is, you know, pretty good pen for a 90mm. The standard Pershing only has 190, so this is 40mm more pen on this. And like I say, you know, it does seem to make up for that lower alpha. As far as I'm aware as well, and as far as I could figure out, and I did ask Carbide at Wargame, the console chieftain, nothing seems to have been done with this from the PC version, so I might be wrong, you know, take it with a pinch of salt, but as far as I can figure out, and from what he could remember, this hasn't been altered from the PC version, or if it has, it may have just been something to do with the commander's hatch. But yeah, this is generally as it is on the PC, and you can see here, in fact there you go, Strev S1, and I took a hit from him. The next one bounced. I'm not sure if that was, it looked like it was from the Strev, not the IC-130, but the first one did pen me, and mine just bounced off him. Took another hit from the 130 there, the IC-130, but I knew I could survive it. However, I've just taken another hit, I think that was from the Strev. So now I've got to be a lot more cautious. Hopefully he'll get taken out. He's side on, I did miss that one on the move. The gun handling on this seems to be quite nice. Like I said before, the accuracy is slightly worse than it is on the normal Pershing, but it doesn't really seem to suffer too much from it. Now I think both of these might be tier 8 matches, unfortunately. I did get into a few high tier matches in this, mostly tier 9s. One tier 10, but I think I got arted in that one. But yeah, both of these are tier 9s. In fact, there you go, that was my first match in it, like I say. Mastery, which I don't put too much stock in because it's a new tank. But 3,500 damage and 3,600 blocked. It's a very, very tough tank if you can get it hull down or get it in a certain position. And the rate of fire can be very, very brutal as well, because if anything does try and charge you down, you can just track it and keep it tracked. But yeah, I have been enjoying that tank, and honestly, I didn't think I would because of the 90mm. But that penetration on it just, you know, I sort of had in the back of my mind the 90mm on the T32, and it was awful. It was just horrible, but that higher pen does make up for it. Now here we are, another tier 8 match as well. As I was saying before, I did get into a tier 9 match yesterday. In fact, it was on Ensk, and I'd got myself into a position where I was hull down again, and I was bounced a shot from a Conqueror, and I think it was, I don't know if it was a tier 8 or a tier 9 Swedish TD as well, and that was bouncing off the turret. So, you know, this is probably going to be the odd weak spot. If they get a good aim or a lucky shot, they'll get through the front of it. But it's very, very, very tough. Again, very typical. It's a very typical American heavy tank. Apart from it's got slightly better mobility, and that was probably the most surprising thing about this, was the mobility. It does sort of feel more like a medium. So it's, you know, I suppose you know that's a, you know, it's a good thing. The only downside to that, the only downside argument I could think of, would be that it does sort of behave more like a medium, but it's taking up a heavy tank slot on your team. Quite why it's a heavy, I'm not entirely sure, because obviously the Sherman Jumbo is up armoured and still classed as a medium. This was a medium tank, or is a medium tank in the game, and is an up armoured version. Although I don't know if in real life the Pershing might have been classed as a heavy originally, or I might be getting confused with something else, but there you go. But yeah, it's like I say, I like it. I wouldn't have bought it if I didn't. The Defender has been changed. That has had some nerfs to it, but I'll talk about that in the Defender review. But as for now, like I say, I quite like this. And I think it's in this one I actually go toe to toe with the Tiger 2, and it just keeps bouncing off my turret until I turn it slightly to try and take down a TD that had got alongside me. But at the moment, as you can see again, I'm just sort of bouncing shots off my turret. Got myself in a bit of a hold down position, and yeah, there you go. I mean, there's not much else to say about it. It's you know, armor wise, it's very typically American heavy, but it's just got that mobility that's a bit of a surprise. And again, just a quick recap, you know, from what I said in the garage, the terrain resistances aren't quite as good as on the Pershing. They're not far off, and they are almost the same as they are on the T32, which is kind of understandable, because this kind of got turned into the T32, or the sort of prototypes or whatever. Now I'm going to go after that Tiger. There's also that ISU down there, so I've got to be careful. I'm not taking any damage yet. Where is he? There he is. And got a quick one into the side. He did get one into my front though. So this is where I decided to basically just get right up into his face and not really give him much to shoot at. And I was surprised that that went through. It was only showing us sort of a 50-50 chance, but it did go through. Get one into the ICU, try and get to a position where he's not going to hit me, but now I've got myself, well, in a very awkward spot. Hopefully somebody can take him out, and they do. Somebody set him on fire. Light tank, so thank you very much to him. Now I can put my attention back onto the Tiger, keep my turret facing him, and just get up right next to him and not give him anything to shoot at that he can pen really worth a damn. As you can see, he was trying to go for my commander's hatch, but the rate of fire on this thing is very, very nice, like I said before. I think on the Pershing and Super Pershing it's about 7.3 rounds a minute, roughly. So 8.36, you know, it gets an extra round a minute almost. Not looking very good though on this one for the team. There's myself, there's a light, there's 2 arties left. Quite a few on the enemy team left, so See if I can do something about it. Some of them are lower tier. Can I get him? Oh, just clipped his tracks. That might come back to bite me in the arse. But we'll soon see. Nope, he's been taken down. We've got a little medium coming this way, tier 6. Almost felt sorry for him. And oh, there's a heavy. That was very, very close. That KV4, go for the lower glacis. Straight through. Yeah, the pen on this is good. I mean, I was sort of having a discussion yesterday. And it sort of, you know, some people are of the opinion that this gun should have been possibly tweaked a little bit and have the pen dropped down a little bit. I don't know. Maybe drop it down to 225, but it just, like I say, it just kind of makes up for the lower alpha. But there you go, still quite a decent match. 3,150 damage and another 2,700 block. So there you go, the Patriot T26E5. Very tough tank. It's sort of, I like it, like I say. I do like it, that's my personal opinion. But I can see it's not going to be for everybody. But if you do like your American heavies, it might be worth sort of having a think about that one. But there you go. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed that. I hope you found it informative. I'll be back, well, later on actually, once this is processed and possibly uploaded. I'll be doing the Defender one, so that'll be uploaded again at some point today. So until then, take care out there and I'll catch you next time. See you later.